What you will want to focus on is their beak structure. Each flock will be feeding on all three types of foods. Due to their beak structure, each has a preferred food type, but they will all feed on any type available as they are competing for a limited food supply. Take a look at the environment on the screen. Notice that there are three types of foods available, 300 pieces of food total. There are also equal numbers of all three flocks of birds. Before you observe the flocks of birds feeding, predict the outcome. What do you think the feeding results of this generation of bird will be?
All right, so before we actually watch them, we are going to predict. Okay, there are three birds on here. Flock X up here in the top left, flock Y over in the right, the yellow ones, and flock Z at the bottom. You can tell it to us in the chat, but what do you predict or what do you think is going to happen when these 30 birds, 10 of each, start to eat the fruits, seeds, and the nuts? Okay. In the chat box, let me know what you predict. Okay, so Matthew said the food's going to be gone in a short amount of time. Carlton said they're going to fight. Suki said they're going to try to eat their preferred food. Right, judging by the looks of these birds, who do you think is going to eat what? All right. Zachary, not sure on the pronunciation. Please let me know. Okay, said he thinks Z is going to eat the least because they have a shorter beak. Asia said she thinks flock Y is going to eat the most because they have a bigger beak. All right, so if you notice right here where it says make a prediction, that's the same question over here on part A of your lab sheet. Okay, so on that lab sheet, I think flock blank will eat more because blank. Maybe you think a certain flock will eat less. Maybe you think flock will eat only this type of food. Hey, I want you to take a minute to jot down your hypothesis. Okay, if you can easily edit the PDF, you're more than welcome to write it there. If not, jot it down on a piece of notebook paper. Type it in a blank document. Okay, again, you're not going to upload this lab sheet, so you don't have to write on it, and you don't have to print it out and fill it in. You can just jot these answers down somewhere, but make sure you have them so you can use them to complete your assignment tonight. If not, you'll have to go back and do all the work by yourself. All right, if you're not sure of your hypothesis, your classmates have put a lot of good ones in the chat box. Alexani said flock X will eat the most. Dylan said flock X will eat the most because their beaks are best suited to this environment. All right, so quickly make your hypothesis. You can use one in the chat box. You can use a different one. Okay, jot down your hypothesis. Just for this page for your notes, I jot it down real quick, and then you'll transfer it to your lab document tonight before you upload, before you submit for tomorrow. So, me personally, I think maybe Y is going to be able to eat more of the bigger stuff like the fruit because I have a bigger beak. I don't know. So,
Now that you have made a prediction, click Next to see if your prediction matches the scenario. When you click on the Start Feeding button, all 30 birds will begin to feed on the 300 pieces of food available. Remember, each bird will try to eat its preferred food, but is able to eat any of the foods available. As the birds feed, watch the table update with food counts.
all right, so we've got a chart at the bottom, block X, Y, and Z. It's going to tell us how many bugs or insects they've eaten, how many seeds, how many pieces of fruit, and the total amount of food. All right, there are 30 birds, 10 of each flock. So let's check it out. All right, so after feeding, X had 25 bugs, 28 seeds, 70 pieces of fruit, for a total of 123. Flock Y had 33 bugs, 45 seeds, 21 pieces of fruit, for a total of 99. Z had 42 bugs, 27 seeds, 9 pieces of fruit, for a total of 78 pieces of food. Just in case you're keeping count, there are a total of 300 pieces of food. All right, so in the chat box, what kind of observation can you make from this? What did you notice? What did you learn? Okay, X ate more, which some of you predicted. What else? Z ate the least with only 78. My personal prediction, I thought Y was going to be able to eat more fruit, but they did not. X over here actually ate more fruit. Y in the middle right here ate the most seeds. Z, even though they ate the least amount of food, they ate the most bugs. Oh, Mustafa summed it up good. X ate more fruit, Y ate more seeds, and Z ate more insects. All right, so let's keep going.
Now you will use the data you collected to determine the sizes of the flocks in the second generation. The flock that ate the most will be the most successful at breeding, increasing in size. The flock that ate the least will shrink in size. You will use each flock's food percentage as its population percentage in the next generation. Here's how. First, compute the row of the table titled Percentage of Food Eaten. You may use a calculator and then check your computations by making sure that the total percentage is 100%. Then multiply each food percentage by the total number of birds, which is 30, and then round to the nearest whole number. Record in the last row of the table.
So for this first one, remember I said I didn't care if you didn't put it on your lab sheet because we're going to do it together. So we're going to do it right here together. These numbers, it simply transferred from the last chart for us already. So there were 300 pieces of food. We need to figure out what percent of the food each flock ate. So he said to do that, divide the total pieces of food by 300 because they ate 123 pieces and there were 300 pieces available. There were 123 pieces that they ate out divided by the 300 total. That gave us 41%. So the next for flock Y, we took the 99 pieces of food that they ate, divided it by the total of 300, and they ate 33 pieces of food. I'm sorry, 33%, not pieces, 33% of the food available. Flock Z ate 78 pieces divided by the available 300 pieces, which means 26%. Guys, the ladies are kicking your butts at the math today. They're getting the answers left and right in this chat box. Gentlemen, y'all better catch up. All right, so 41% plus 33% plus 26%. If we get our math right, which we did, will equal 100. So 100% of the food, X ate 41% of it, Y had 33% of it, and Z had 26. So now we're going to use that information to figure out how many birds we predict will be in the next generation. Based on how much food they ate, which flock do you predict or think is going to grow in population size? All right, so it looks like overall we think flock X is going to grow in population size. Let's check it out. To find the number in the second generation, we're going to multiply the food percentage for each flock by the total number of birds. So 41% times the total birds is 30 birds. 41% multiplied by 30 birds gives us okay, if we have 41%, then when we use that to multiply, it's 0.41. So 0.41 times 30 gives us a decimal of 12.3, but we can't have a third of a bird, so we're going to round that to 12. Okay, we're not halving birds. Nobody's cut any birds in pieces. So for flock Y, 33% is 0.33 times the total of 30 birds. Gives us 9.9, but again, we're going to round that to 10 birds. And for the last one, flock Z, they only got 26% of the food, which is 0.26, multiplied by the total number of birds, 30, gives us 7.8. And as the ladies said, Asia, Amy, Carlton, Asia, and Suki. There we go, for a total of 8. So, all started with 10 birds. Flock X now has 12 birds. Y now has 10, and Z has 8. So flock X, they ate good food, they had enough food, they were healthy, they reproduced. Now their flock has grown. Flock Y had a decent amount of food and they did okay, so they stayed the same. But look at flock Z, they didn't have enough food. So some people or birds probably died. All right, let's keep going. jumped ahead of myself a little bit there. Flock X was the most successful, so it will have the greatest number in the next generation. Flock Z was the least successful and has shrunk.
Is this what you predicted? Either way, be sure to record the results in your data table. Then click Next to watch the second generation feed.
Okay, that's not what I predicted, but it's okay. Okay, prediction doesn't have to be right, it's just what you think will happen.
Will flock X continue to have an advantage? Click the button to start. Once again, as the birds feed, watch the table update with food counts. Now that the feeding period has ended, record each food type eaten by each flock in your data table. Then click Next to analyze the data.
So flock X had 78 pieces of fruit. That was the most out of anybody by far. Seeds were fairly close, but flock Y ate more. Look at the insects though. They're almost the same.
Once again, compute percentages based on the food eaten and multiply each percentage by the number of birds, 30, to get the number of birds in the third generation.
All right, so on your screen, you should be able to hit the button that says Annotate. Now, you may have to click the little 3 dots or go to More Options. You should be able to click Annotate, and then you can write on my screen, and I'm going to give you guys just a second to fill out this chart. Okay, we did it together last time. Now I want you to do it this time. Oh, sorry, I wasn't talking. I was just waiting on you guys to get some answers. All right, so $147 pieces of food divided by the 300 pieces that they ate, or the 300 pieces total, gave us 0.49. or 49%. 93 pieces of food divided by the total available of 300, 0.31, 31%. 60 divided by 30 gave us 2 or 20%. Make sure you're moving your decimals. So if we were going to take our percentages and find our number in the third generation, 49% is 0.49 times 30, the total number of birds, is 14.7. Okay, 14.7 birds. Sorry guys, the phone will quit ringing in a second if you hear it. It's 15 because I'm not cutting up birds, we'll pretend. Flock Y, 31% or 0.31 times the 30 number of birds is 9.3, rounds to 9. 20 or 0.20 divided by 30 gave us 0.066666667, I think. Oh, no, 0.6. Huh, I must type something wrong. So, 6 birds. All right, remember, they all started with 10. They had, X had 10. The next generation, they had 12. The next generation, they had 15. Flock Y had 10, 10. Now they're down to 9. Flock Z started with 10. Last time they had 8. And by the third generation, there's only 6 left. So if this were to continue, what do you think is going to happen? If this same pattern were to continue, what do you think is going to happen? All right, so maybe Z goes extinct or dies. Okay, if it's just one flock, then there's just not going to be any more in the area. But if that's the only one, they would eventually go extinct. All right, so let me put these in. Okay, you said that natural selection favored flock X. Meanwhile, flock Z has declined the most.
By the third generation, flock X has increased to 15 birds, now half the entire population. Flock Y is still strong at 9 birds. However, flock Z has shrunk to just 6 birds. Be sure to record all of these values in your data table and remember them before you proceed to the second half of the lab. During the first half of the lab, flock X grew, in part due to its ability to pierce and tear apart the fruit, but also because it ate a fair amount of the other 2 types of food. But look at the environment, which has changed. There's no longer any fruit. A plant disease has stricken the island. So that you can make a valid comparison of this half of the study with the first half that you already completed, there are once again 10 members of each flock of birds. When you are done with this half of the lab, you will be able to compare the results of this half to the first half and see the effect of changing the food available. But for now, predict the outcome. What do you think the feeding results of this generation of birds will be?
All right, so this time they took away the fruit. Oh, it's not going to keep our numbers. Remember though, right here, okay, flock X had the most fruit eaten, but they had the least amount or smaller amounts of everything else. So
During the first half of the lab, flock X grew, in part due to its ability to pierce and tear apart the fruit, but also because it ate a fair amount of the other two types of food. But look at the environment, which has changed. There's no longer any fruit. A plant disease has stricken the island. So that you can make a valid comparison of this half of the study with the first half that you already completed, there are once again 10 members of each flock of birds. When you are done with this half of the lab, you will be able to compare the results of this half to the first half and see the effect of changing the food available. But for now, predict the outcome. What do you think the feeding results of this generation of birds will be?
all right, so what do you think is going to happen this time if we remove the fruit? Dylan said flock X will suffer, but flock Y was able to eat more seeds and bugs, so they might do better. Okay, flock X won't have as much to eat since they normally eat most of the fruit. This is where you're going to come back to that lab sheet. Remember, we did part A. Now we're going to go to the second question. X will be lower now. X maybe will start declining. Flock Y will have more to eat. Okay, Z might kind of stay the same. So on your lab sheet, okay, go back and make your second prediction. Again, if you can't write on the PDF, that's fine. Just jot it down somewhere so that you have a good prediction, and then we'll run the simulation and see if you were correct.
Now, which flock will eat the most this time? Click the button to start. As the birds feed, watch the table update the food counts. Now that the feeding period has ended, record each food type eaten by each flock in your data table. Then click Next to analyze the data.
All right, so now looking at the new information, once we removed the fruit, X ate 30 bugs and 20 seeds for a total of 57. Y had 30 and 90 for a total of 153. And Z had 60 and 30 for a total of 90.
Once again, compute percentages based on the food eaten and multiply each percentage by the number of birds, 30, to get the number of birds in the second generation.
Okay, again, I'm going to take just a second. Need some volunteers on the board. You should all be able to click annotate and tap on the board. And let's fill out this chart so we can discuss it. All right, so, oh, we got one more number, but I can fill it in. Out of the 300 pieces of food, flock X, which usually ate 40 or 50%, only had 19 now. Flock Y, who usually ate about 30%, now has 51%. Flock Z ate pretty close to normal. They actually came up a little bit at 30%. Remember, all the birds started with 10. But now, X is at 6. Y improved to 15. And Z stayed pretty close to the same at 9. So what do you think is going to happen if we continue and we run this simulation a second time for the third generation? What's going to happen? Flock X will decline and go extinct maybe. Flock Y will increase. All right, let's see. Clear our drawings off.
One last time, watch the birds feed. Will flock Y eat so well that the flock will grow even more? Now that the feeding period has ended, record each food type eaten by each flock in your data table. Then click Next to analyze the data one last time.
All right, so X ate 32, Y got 180, which for 10 birds is pretty impressive, and Z had 88.
One last time. Compute percentages based on the food eaten, and multiply each percentage by the number of birds, 30, to get the number of birds in the third generation.
All right, I'm going to give you a minute to go ahead and fill this last chart out. All righty. So flock X ate 11%, Y got 60% of the food, and Z got 29% of the food. X had 10, then they had 6. Now they're going to finish the third generation with 3. Y had 10, then 15, now 18. And Z again is holding pretty steady, 10, 9, 9. All right, so remember in the first part when we had seeds, fruit, and nuts, X was doing the best. But when we took away the fruit, which was their main food, why could they not eat the seeds and the nuts as well? You can put it in the chat box. Why can X not eat the seeds and then, seeds and bugs, sorry. The seeds and bugs as well? Their beak is not the right size or shape for it. Okay, their long pointy beak, maybe they can't quite get the fruit. So they either now have to adapt or die. Okay, if you have a few birds out of that population, out of group X, like these three right here, and maybe their beak's a little shorter and wider than normal, they might do okay for a while. But eventually the only ones left in flock X are going to be those whose beak was a little bit different. If their beak is that long pointy and can't eat fruit, they're going to die. Yes, that's what Darwin's talking about, survival of the fittest. He said it's not always the strongest or the fastest who survive or the smartest, but the ones who can adapt. So if they can kind of change and maybe find something else to eat or figure out a way to maybe use their claws to pull the fruit apart before they eat it, then they're going to be okay. But if not, they're going to die. Oh, all right, let me clear the page.
Now make sure that you are ready for the post-lab reflection. Did you record all of the data throughout the virtual lab? Summarize your findings by filling in.
Okay, so let me get to today. Again, yours looks a little bit different to mine just because you're in student view, but it's still the same. So we've already done the virtual lab. And you've completed part of the lab worksheet. We're going to work on the next part in a minute. So right now, there's not a Word document, but you don't have to turn it in, so it's okay. You won't need to write on it. Right now, we're going to look at reflect on the lab. So we did a prediction. We did a prediction for the second part. Now we're going to look at your post-lab reflection. Oh, those stayed the same. Okay. All right, so we're looking at this bottom part down here. The post. Post means after the lab reflection. See what time you guys get done today. I forget. 12:10. Okay, we've got time. Perfect.
It is now time to reflect on the laboratory experiment you did in this lesson. In this lab, the 3 flocks of birds changed in numbers between generation 1 and generation 3. Why? Check all reasons.
All right, so which of these, okay, allowed the numbers to change? Why did the numbers change? A, B, or C, and you can put it in the chat box. And it says check all that apply, so there might be more than one. All right. Suki, Asia, Carlton said A and B. Ava said A and B. All right, somebody said B and C or 3. All right, so we're going to go with these. Sorry. I forgot to mute my phone this morning. There we go.
The distribution of beak structures changed over time. The success of a flock was determined by the amount of food they were able to eat.
All right, so he said, if a flock's beak type made it easier to pick up the available food, they grew. If a flock's beak type made it harder to pick up the food, the flock shrunk. But the amount of food did not increase or decrease. There were 300 pieces each time. Okay, from the first experiment to the second, they changed the type of food, but they didn't ever change the amount of food. So on your lab, your post-lab reflection, you could write something about their beak structure. Okay, if the flock's beak made it easier to pick up food, the flock grew. If the flock's beak made it harder to pick up food, the flock shrunk. All right, so with this, again, you don't have to submit this lab sheet. This is just for us to keep our answers on. So you can jot them down on a piece of notebook paper. You can write it in a blank document. When you go to do your assignment, and I'll show that to you in a minute, there's two places where you type in the assignment, and then there's some multiple choice questions. So you don't have to upload this, okay? Just jot these 3 answers down on a blank piece of paper. Jot them down in a Word document, and write them on your hand in lipstick if you have to, but just keep up with them somewhere. Okay, really don't do that. That's probably going to be messy, but just keep up with them somewhere, and then in just a second, I'll show you how to transfer it and submit. I did not ask you to upload this PDF this time because I know last time we all seem to have problems with the PDF, so I didn't want you guys to have to deal with that this time. All right, so for your reflection, hopefully yours will be a little more detailed than mine. Okay, I just jotted something down real quick, but hopefully you'll add a little bit more information in yours. Hint, hint. Oh no, okay, just a second, let me clear the page. There we go. So, in Canvas, we found today's date. We did the lab. We did the worksheet. We did the reflection. Now, we're going to do this part where it says lab complete for a grade. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pause my screen and I'm going to switch over to student view so that I can show you what it looks like. Take this moment to go ahead and open that where it says lab complete for a grade. Okay, go ahead and open where it says lab complete for a grade. Right here it says lab complete for a grade. This is what you're going to submit. This is what I'm going to grade. It says it's due August 30th, which is tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. Okay, you don't have a time limit and you do have 2 attempts. Here's what it says. The actual selection lab is found in Canvas and needs to be completed in Canvas first. We did that. Okay, we did the lab already. So now, complete this lab worksheet for your grade. This is the part you're going to do for your grade, and I'm going to show you how to do it right now. The assignment is divided into 2 parts, Part A and Part B. Each is 50 parts, making the assignment worth 100 points. Part A is the written part. Please remember proper sentence structure. Okay, we jotted down some answers just so you had them, but make sure that you use a full sentence. I predicted that blank, blank, blank would happen because blank, 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 period. Okay, predictions are going to be worth 12.5 points apiece, and the post lab is worth 25. We made 2 predictions and 1 lab reflection. That's a total of 50 points. Part B is multiple choice. There are 5 questions at 10 points each for a total of 100. So you're going to go right here and take the quiz. Question 1. Okay, right here, whatever it is you want to type. Question 2. You're going to type some stuff. Okay. Question 3. That's your post-lab reflection. Again, please add more. Okay, use the details you learned. You could go back and look at the math that we did if you'd like to go back and look at the numbers, or run that simulation again and say what flock ate what. Then, okay, that's part 1. The next part is some multiple choice questions. All right, there are 5 of them. Okay, you're just going to pick whatever answer you want to pick. I don't know if that's the right answer. I'm just picking an answer. Okay. After you've got everything answered, you submit. Okay. And then it will grade for, it may go ahead and give you a grade on the second half. I'm not sure. And then once you guys get them submitted, I'll go back and grade. It'll show you that questions 1 through 3 are not graded yet, and I'll have to grade those. So we've got about 15 minutes here in class left today. Okay, now is a great time for you to do that. While I'm here to answer questions, while I'm here to help you. And if you get it out of the way now, then you don't have to do it tomorrow night at 11:30 for homework. Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes in Canvas. Here's how you find it. Okay, when you open your leave student view. When you open your dashboard, go to 6th period. Again, mine looks slightly different just because it's on teacher view. There we go. Okay, scroll down to today's date. And you need to do the one for a grade. This says lab complete for a grade. This is the one I'm grading. We've got about 15 minutes. This would be a great time for you to get that done. I'm going to be here. You can send us in the group chat if you think everybody else could benefit from it. If it's something else, you can send it in the personal chat. Okay. I'm not going to tell you an answer because we like to the multiple choice. Don't ask me what's number 5. I'm not going to answer that. But if you have a question on what to do or how to do it or where to find it, those types of things, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. We're going to take the last 15 minutes or so to work on that, but technically we're still in class, so please don't exit. Just minimize this while you're working and let me know if you have questions.